Rockingham County government presents You've Got Grit. You've got grit, Valencia Abbott of Reedsville. You've got grit. And what is grit? Well, Albert Einstein said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. So folks with grit know how to seize opportunity, even through difficulties, challenges, and storms. You've got grit, Valencia Abbott. Let's start off by asking, who is Valencia Abbott?
I will start to say the essence of who I am is I am the mother of 3 daughters, all adults, and have one son-in-law and 4 grandchildren. And that, I think, is a defining part of me. Me being a history teacher for the last 17 years is definitely the makeup of who I am.
Tell us about your early life growing up.
I was born in Rockingham County. I was raised in Ruffin, and Ruffin was that place that definitely tells who I am. I remember going to college and saying I was from Ruffin, and no one knew what that place was. And I had to usually start with Greensboro, if they were familiar with North Carolina, and go from there. But my best description was Ruffin. I was like, you drive in Rockingham County until you get to tobacco fields and barns and a few houses, and then you stop, and then you're in Ruffin.
What was it like growing up in Ruffin?
I don't know how to answer that, because
As a child?
to me, it was just normal. So I don't see it was different than anything else. I grew up, the first part in off of Organ Hill Road until my father passed away when I'm in 8th grade. And then the rest of it until I was 21, I stayed on Organ Hill Road until I was 21. So first part off of 700 Organ Hill, it was family, it was going to school, it was waiting for my mom to get home from Fieldcrest, making sure that the house was clean, that the chores was done. It was having my cousins and friends and sisters and brothers together during school, after school. It was working in tobacco during the summer, because that was the way that we was going to earn money to get new school clothes. And it was just, I think, us.
What about your education?
Neither one of my parents graduated from high school. And it was demanded by my mom that all of her children were going to get a high school diploma. Now, what we did after that was up to us, but I know that it was always said, that I always had my head in a book, and I don't know why I got it in my head that I was going to go to college, especially not having that background of knowing anybody that went to college. But I was determined since 7th grade I was going to go to college, and I applied to 3. I got into all 3. I chose Catawba College in Salisbury. And I tell my students, especially first generation students, that my path to higher education was trial and error with more error. So in the classroom, I tried to be that beacon to help them, especially those that don't have that foundation to maneuver all of this. So I serve as a senior advisor at the early college. But I go to Catawba, I major in pre-law, I graduate, and after that, then I got married.
Why did you choose teaching?
I didn't choose teaching. If you had have asked me in college or before 2004 if I was going to been a teacher, I would have bet my soul that that was not going to happen. So I didn't choose teaching. Teaching came to get me. It chose me. I had lost my job. I was a customer service supervisor. I lost my job, and I was trying to decide what I was going to do. So I went into sub to, to have income. And I was at Reedsville Middle School, and I subbed in a classroom that was for a teacher that was for English and history. And at the end of that year, I knew that this was my purpose. It wasn't a career. It was like no choice. I was going to have to be a teacher. And the principal there, Miss Usual, saw something, believed in me, and I became a teacher.
What's important to Valencia Abbott?
The first thing that I started with, and that's my family. And I think that is so true of people born in this area, because Rockingham County is family. I grew up in Ruffin, on the land that my grandparents owned. I was surrounded by my aunts and uncles and cousins. When I come to Reedsville, you didn't go to any place but usually with family. You go to visit your cousins, you go visit your grandmother. It was just family. That is who defined who I am and continues to define who I am.
Tell us about your hobbies.
Oh, well, if you ask my daughters, and this is their saying, they will tell you that they went to more museums than any normal children on the face of the earth. And that was before I became a teacher. So they were really happy that I became a teacher because now I could put that focus on somebody else. So history, the past, and in particular, Black history. My passion is 19th century Southern history, focusing on the Black experience, to uncover and to read that history about these people that were taken from their homeland, that were put under these horrific conditions, and they survived. And not only did they survive, they created this culture and essence and strength out of all of that. And yes, studying the horrific parts of slavery, there are parts that has definitely made me cry and mad and upset, but I see the strength in these people, and to learn this history and to know their names and to honor them. I think that is the best thing that I can do in recognizing them. And I'm not just talking about the ones that we hear about in the history books, and those are too few. But I'm talking about those names that we will never know. So to honor that history and to put that out there, that is definitely, I don't even think I can call it a hobby. That's just who I am.
Where do you think this yearning came from?
I actually had to think about that question. I'm presenting in a couple of weeks at the Black Educators Conference. And the director, one of the questions that he proposed that we answer was, where did your love of Black history begin? And I really gave it some thought. And my answer, or my response then was, I think because of when I was born. I was born in 1964. So I grew up with parents that were in the civil rights movement. And when I say in the civil rights movement, I mean they wasn't marching, they wasn't doing the sit-ins, but they were there during that period. And I was a benefactor of that, a benefactor of everything that had come before and their quest for equality. And also knowing that it wasn't always going to be fair. You grew up hearing you have to work twice as hard to go half as far, and knowing that it was true. And for me, growing up in the 70s and being exposed to sitcoms such as Good Times and Sanford and Son and Jefferson, and seeing Black people not only in my personal space at home, but seeing Black people in other areas. And then I think the defining moment is probably the series Roots. So I was 13 years old, and this comes on for, I think, 8 days in a row. And you see the story of people of African descent. And part of that story even takes place in North Carolina because it goes into Alamance. And you see this story. And I think all of that, again, with that upbringing of the family that I have, inspired that or create that essence of why I want to keep telling these stories.
That resilience that you just talked about, how can that be parlayed into helping to strengthen young people even today?
When someone knows where they came from, when they understand the struggles of what it took to get to a certain point, then I hope that people appreciate that. When I understand that my mom wanted to make sure that I never had to take a job cleaning someone else's house because that was all that was offered. She never wanted us to do that. So she's going to push education. When I understand that my family were sharecroppers, that they didn't own their land, and I'm talking about my mom's side because my dad's side does own their land. When I understand that they would have to go from place to place because it just depended on somebody else. When I understand that all of that sacrifice that was done to get me where I am, then if others understand that past, if they recognize that, then I'm hoping that they honor that and it pushes them to do better or want to do better for that.
To whom much is given, much is required.
Right.
Yes.
You have to make all of this make sense. And you have to understand that when you see the unfairness in the world, that there are some parts of you that can make it better. You can't fix everything, but your skills and your talent and your gifts that you do have is meant for something. And it's meant for something beyond yourself. And then when you do that, you get so much more out of it. And you find peace. And I'm not going to say that it makes everything rainbows and unicorns. It doesn't. But it does give you strength to go on.
That leads to my next question. How can we encourage more citizens to become engaged and involved in the community, to share those gifts and those talents, that time?
You know what? I wish I knew.
That's a $1 million question. And some people feel, well, what do I have to give?
Right, and
God has given you gifts.
And I think that's the tough part, is convincing someone else that they do have gifts and encouraging them to do so. When I'm creating a program or when I am doing a lecture, I'm hoping that something that I say touches someone. But I don't know, because I don't know what's in each person. And that is going to be something that each person has to realize themselves and to go for it. But yeah, everybody does have a gift and they're different. And sometimes it takes a while for people to realize that. But yeah, I can't answer, because I really wish I could, because then the things that I'm volunteering and wish more people would contribute, all the time we're begging people, please come, please help, and to do that. And all I can say is that I'm gonna keep trying.
Keep asking.
Yeah.
Keep asking.
Yeah, that.
Why do you love Rockingham County, North Carolina?
Because it's home. Because it is the birthplace of my family. This is where I raised my children. This is where my grandson is. And this is the place that my granddaughters get to come and visit. This is just who I am.
You've got grit, Valencia Abbott. I bet some of you out there know someone you describe by saying, you've got grit. So email a paragraph describing the person you think Spectrum 1304 and Rockingham County government should interview for You've Got Grit. Then email your paragraph to mscott@co.rockingham.nc.us. That's mscott@co.rockingham.nc.us. Thanks again for watching. You've Got Grit.